Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to Radio at AquarianRadio.com. I'm your host with my co-Dr. Lessin. We have a very exciting episode today of Planetary Oligarchy. We're joined by Reynaldo Duarte and Ethan Indigo Smith that's going to join us later on today. And we'll be discussing the word globalization, just what exactly is globalization. We shall also explore the frightening parallels of globalization with Nazism and fascism as they manifest themselves in Germany and Italy in the 30s and 40s. Globalization is the process of international integration arising from the interchange of world products, ideas, and other aspects of cultures, advances in transportation and telecommunications, infrastructure, the rise of prosperity, and the Internet, which are major factors in globalization, generating further dependence of economic and cultural activity. Yeah, and Ethan Indigo Smith is going to join us half an hour, and his completely ties in with the we're going to be the Complete Patriot's Guide to Oligarchical Collectivism. And Reynaldo's book is Elementary, My Dear Walid, which we feature our Planetary Oligarchy show. And James Clayton is joining us today, but I will click on Reynaldo and say aloha. Hold on one second. Just activate. Here we go. Hello, Reynaldo. Are you with us?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Is James with you today, or are you by yourself?
Not today. Just me, because due to some computer issues.
That's fine. Stuff happens. We're cool with it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Anyways, where were we last week?
Doesn't matter. Start over.
Because I know last week was computer issues too. But anyway,
let's
yes.
do as best we can.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you
just global. It's likely to impoverish everybody and have us all see who can slave the cheapest and kill the rest. That's my opinion, and I think that the data that we're going to get from Reynaldo convinces that is absolutely the case.
Exactly. Well, here's what's going on. When I was researching into my book, what I found here was simple. The parallels were frightening, okay, because the people who speak out so much for globalization, they're the kind of people that will talk for hours on it about it. I've listened to some of their seminars, some various YouTube videos. Right now, my name does not serve me with the titles of them, but the point of the matter is simple. They'll yak for hours about how great globalization is and how they're pursuing an agenda of insisting to governments throughout the world that they privatize pretty much everything that possibly can be privatized and then some. And they'll just go on about what a wonderful way it is to do things. And after that, you look at it and ask yourself, what did they say? The simple fact of the matter is they said nothing. They talked for hours on it. And they said nothing of any substance. That's what I noticed there. And who else historically was famous for doing that?
Oh.
Obviously, Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was famous historically. And the the fact of the matter is that Hitler he had that gift for doing that. He could yak for hours on end, and then at the end of it, if you read a transcript of his speech, he said nothing of any real substance. He'd go on for hours on it, and that's what the globalization cheerleaders are doing. The cheerleaders for globalization are the kind of people that can do that. They will go on, and nothing they say is at all of any importance, doesn't answer any specific questions. They never get into any specifics of their agenda. And there's a very good reason why they don't do that. Because in order to get into any specifics about their agenda, it would be fatal for their agenda to do so.
You know, without a minimum wage that's universal, it's just bound to bring wages down lower and lower and lower.
Exactly, and that's what it could be termed a worldwide race to the bottom. Because when you think about it, when now even China is complaining, having problems with jobs being exported overseas.
So globalization could be a good thing if there was if I'm getting this correctly, it could be a good thing in a way if there was a standardization of wages planet-wide.
And labor conditions that aren't dangerous and bad for health.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I always have to go outside of this human box here, the Earth box, and think how, at least this is what I do, how would this be another planet that was very conscious and civilized, right? How would they treat their citizens? And they certainly wouldn't feel like they're being treated here in a conscious civilized society. In a conscious civilized society, there would probably be some standard that's global, because if you don't have a standard that's global, you have this continual situation where you can always export labor to somewhere where you can have a type of slavery. And monetary systems do not work. That's the whole problem. Money systems do not work because they constitute greed and power and control and manipulation. So we've got to have another whole system of somehow sharing and distribution of necessities around the planet besides this current system, which is obviously not working. And some kind of global way of cleaning up pollution and stopping trafficking people, the drugs that support the oligarchy.
Exactly right. You are exactly correct. The point is, well, think about it. When the Chinese are complaining now that factories are just being taken down the road to Vietnam, where they can pay less than $3 a day to a Vietnamese factory worker. This has started since the Chinese have started asking for some slightly better wages for their factory workers. But this always happens, you see. It's the way it'll always go. A country will offer to do the job for the least amount of money that they can possibly offer to be able to do the job. And what globalization has done has taken away the upward mobility. Because think about it. Why did North America and parts of Europe ever develop a middle class in the first place? I ask you both to ponder that for a minute. Why did middle classes ever happen in any of the industrialized world countries? Unions were a good part of it.
Unions because people got together.
Exactly.
International unions to be able to create that.
So when did middle classes begin? I go back to the feudal system, which is rich and poor. So that's a good
exactly.
When did classes begin?
No, there was the cockroach rich, the people that fawned on the real rich.
Exactly. Well, the point of the matter is, middle classes ever began in the first place in the industrialized world nations that had middle classes because the corporations had to realize that they had best just get along with the system that allows them to be able to become the big businesses they became. when they honestly had to think for a minute, where could we get a better deal than this? And even if we could move our factories overseas, the government of this country here would simply impose import tariffs. So, yeah, maybe we could produce a television set more cheaply in Guangzhou, China, than we can in Akron, Ohio. But at the port of Long Beach, California, they're going to slap a rather considerable import tariff on this television set, which means that we won't be able to sell it any cheaper here and make money doing it than if we just had somebody make it here. So between a government that was more or less on the people's side, and as you mentioned earlier, labor unions, to give them a collective voice when dealing with management, that was why a middle class ever happened in the first place.
So the trade agreements basically kill the local ability to have a middle class.
It's killed the ability of many nations to have a middle class. Because now that the corporations don't have to contemplate import tariffs, because after all, goods produced in China get imported with little, if any, tariffs into different countries throughout the world. And then a government that turned hostile towards labor unions and has made it quite clear that they will not support labor unions. That if labor unions make too many demands on their employers, that they'll just be shut down. Now, granted, yes, at times labor unions could make unreasonable demands. Sometimes they did. But other times their demands weren't unreasonable. Other times their demands have a basis in reality. But now, even the demands of labor unions that would have very well-founded basis for being made are no longer being listened to. And absent the ability to negotiate with management with any strength, and absent a government that cares enough about their own country's infrastructure to say, no, you don't take jobs out of this country. You want to do business in this country, you put our people to work here. And forgive me for sounding like a father, but it's for your own good. What I'm telling you to do, son, is for your own good. Because you keep this up, and sooner or later, you will have no one to whom to sell your products because you'll put everybody out of work if you keep this up. And then those television sets that you could make so cheaply in Guangzhou, China, or now Hanoi, Vietnam, are just going to sit on the shelves of Walmart forever, and nobody will buy them at any price because there'll be nobody out there working to have a job and a paycheck coming in to be able to buy the television set. So sometimes, I hate to say this, but sometimes, yeah, government, once in a great while, ends up being cast in the role of parents dealing with an overindulged child. And that's basically what corporate America has become, the world's biggest, most overgrown, overindulged child you can imagine. Because for the past 30 years. Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The local governments give all kinds of tax incentives and write-offs to get jobs from an industry that will relocate, and as soon as they get a deal somewhere else, they just stick the taxpayers that gave them all those breaks for all those years and